In middle school they just start trying to get on each other's nerves more and are usually overly smiley. The main problem comes when only one of them is smiley. Depends on the age, but the signs are obvious as hell. Lots of staring, and not so obvious but very obvious attempts at being near them. Visible disappointment when they aren't put in the same group for group work. Jealousy in all forms. I've seen a kid hate a classmate for weeks because that classmate sat next to the kid's crush for morning meeting. There's a boy in my class whose voice hasn't changed yet. But every time he is talking to another girl from a different class, he is noticeably lowering his voice to sound deeper. Obvious signs are obvious. Super obvious. When a girl says "stupid" while laughing at a guy who is teasing her, or a guy goes out of his way to make fun of her, steal something from her so she'll have to pursue him to get it back, it makes me 100% certain. My now wife admitted to stealing my sweater so I'd have to call her. I still wonder about the ethics of that. I once had a teacher tell me that my crush and I worked together well, and used him and I as an example for something. We ended up together and she said, "Aw, I so predicted it." Seeing the reaction on her face was priceless and I'll never forget it. So, apparently we were very obvious. Sometimes it can be amusing to sit two people together who we think might be attracted to one another. Or, if it seems toxic, having their seats very far away from one another. Another interesting, but cruel one, is having one of the individuals sit next to the other's best friend. Usually about 2 or 3 rows in front so they can observe the two together. It's 100% super obvious all the time, but I teach emotionally damaged teenagers. Everything with students is obvious. I know who you have a crush on. I know when you and your friend got in a fight and aren't the same today. I know when you are having a bad week. I know when you've lost motivation. I know when you're looking for attention and I know when you want to be left alone. Some teachers use this information to make informed decisions, like sitting you next to your crush, cutting you slack that day, asking if everything is alright, etc. But I've seen some use it to be unfair to students. What's even more obvious is when one has a crush and the other isn't interested. I'm speaking strictly from the demographic from my own school I taught at, so I hope it's clear I'm not generalizing all teenagers here. But I've noticed when a girl is crushing and the guy isn't, he is more likely, but not always, to be more forward about telling her so, to the point, in 1 or 2 cases, of sometimes being openly cruel to her. The girls in the reverse situation act annoyed and will sometimes make their disinterest clear, but more often than not they grin and bear it and try to pretend the crush doesn't exist. That's all I've got. I was there 4 months. They started hanging around each other a lot, always hugging, making lots of context for physical contact, then they started holding hands, became very close to the point that you'd never see one without the other until they finally started dating. They were 2 of the most troublesome children, and to this day everyone is afraid of this relationship. Well, not now, but when I was in high school, a student and a substitute teacher had a relationship. It started off as him giving compliments every day, then after some time later they were kissing and he would grab her ass in front of other students. Don't know how she wasn't fired or how they were never caught. Sadly, sometimes they get aggressive to get their crush's attention. I'm still in school. And well, I have this classmate who acts super alpha all the time. Let's just say it's switched to overdrive when he's near a girl he likes. Up until high school, and even then sometimes, it takes the form of harassing or picking on the person they are attracted to. It's more socially acceptable at that stage to mess with them than just express attraction. It's funny to watch TBH. Used to teach 6th and 8th grade science at an inner-city school. I told all of my students their best chance at dating their crush was to be respectful. The 8th graders ignored me and proceeded to make fun of their crushes. The 6th graders, though, they bought it. 11-year-olds were holding the door open and pulling chairs out for their crushes, being supportive and kind to one another. Cutest shit ever. Edit. One letter. If the two kids are in your class in the same hour class period, it does become pretty obvious. They get all nervous around each other. But if I'm being honest, teachers aren't really interested or concerned about that. They've got a job to do. When I taught HS, I never knew or cared about that gossip, unless it turned into a physical fight right outside my classroom, which was the farthest away from the security desk in the school, so it was a popular site for fights. In the words of my teacher, who I recently saw during break, in college now, when she decided to sit in your lap every day and started playing house with you instead of working, I kind of got the hint. How in God's name did you miss it? Apparently, the fact that this girl was so obvious while I didn't see it triggered her. She even ranted about it for a couple of minutes in one of her other classes before she realized that that was inappropriate. In my defense, the girl was actively trying to send mixed signals. Not a teacher, but as a student, I enrolled in home economics as a senior to get the easy credits. I soon regretted not signing up for graphic design class, because the class consisted of teen moms and their soon-to-be fathers, with only 17-year-old virgin me in the middle of the class. So yay, that is another clear sign that classmates had a crush on each other at one point. Shoot. I need to know how obvious this is in an office setting with adults. Asking for a friend. Not a teacher, but I was completely oblivious as a kid. In 7th and 8th grade had a crush on a girl in class, and it wasn't until years later that I figured out she had been flirting with me. Sitting on the desk in front of me. Coming to me after class in the hallway to tell me she thought I was the smartest kid in class. I wasn't. And that was my response, followed by walking faster to get away from her. I remember there being other clear signs, but I have tried to put it behind me. We have mutual Facebook friends, so she popped up in my suggested friends at some point. She's still really, ridiculously good looking. The obvious ones would be obvious. But many more silent crushes will go completely unnoticed. So the tempting answer would be, it's obvious, but the truth is that it's less obvious than it seems. I'll tell you right now that when I had crushes in school, it was top priority that no one ever find out, especially the object of the crush. In elementary it's very obvious, and in the lower grades they can be very sweet about it, giving little gifts, drawings, etc. In the upper grades it's basically insults and cooties, but still obvious. Not a teacher, but in 10th grade science class I was ostracized by my classmates, so I moved seats and began sitting behind my crush. It led to an invite, original name on invite crossed off, to her birthday party. When they're in kindergarten they go from ignoring the other person to holding hands at recess and getting mad when they don't get out in the same play center together. I'd say pretty obvious. I remember one day my college professor was talking to me after class and asked me what was going on. He then asked if I was in love with anyone. And even my friend said, everyone within 4 rows knows you like her, which was probably true since most people thought I was dating her. I'm not the subtle person and I know I'm obvious. I'm a university professor and it's usually quite obvious. There are foot and back massages going on between students when I come into a class early during a break. My English teacher thought me and my best friend were in a relationship all through senior year, which we thought was funny when she told us, but then he ended up kissing me after graduation and we dated for a little after that. I guess she knew better than we did at the time. Not a teacher but working in a care home, one of our girls has a crush on one of the boys and it's so obvious. She's started taking more care of her appearance. She laughs too loudly and obviously at stuff he says, some of it not even remotely funny. Wherever he is she's not far, etc. He has no idea and I keep debating whether to tell him out or not.